Thanks, Randy.
Okay.
Oh, Angelina. So when it hits 2 o'clock, we basically have everybody come on stage, take a picture like that.
Yes. Did you hear me, buddy, or was I muted?
Hi, Eva.
I didn't hear you at all.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm gonna.
Hello.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm going to wait a few minutes and then bring them up, greet everybody and bring them on stage, and then pass it right off to you because you're the pro. But we just do that first little photo thing that's just kind of an introduction from students in VR and everything. And they'll start filming.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, guys. Thank you all for coming to our Students in VR keynote. We are so glad that you are here. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Educators in VR and the American Indian Resource Center in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, for helping to put this all together, and for all of our volunteers. We have the most amazing talk interview today. But we do something very special before each of our presentations. That is, we take a photo of everybody in the audience up with our guests. And so Tom and Buddy are going to stay sitting down. And usually we all pile up on stage. But I'm going to ask that when I give you guys permissions to come on stage, if you could stand behind them. And the lucky person that doesn't get stampeded virtually can sit next to Tom, or really close. And then Donna will follow Donna's directions to get a photo taken. Okay, so I'm going to give everybody permissions to come on up. Look at Laurel. Laurel knew she's going to get her seat.
She was already first.
Come on down, guys. Add Luna
And they
and
quickly
Matt.
gathered around Tom.
And
This is great.
Lots of room, so nobody has to be behind me, buddy. So
All right, buddy.
should
What's
be
up?
in the picture. Okay, so we're almost up here. Karen, yes, you have to be in the picture.
Emojis ready.
Do you want to move over, JB? Yeah, perfect. Okay, everybody get emojis ready. And I'm going to count down. So keep doing emojis until I tell you to stop, okay? So keep going. And I'm going to count it down. And we'll go 5, 4, 3. And there it is. I got it. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
awesome, guys. Thank you so much. If
Thanks.
everybody can make their ways back to their seats, this honestly is what I've been waiting all day for. So without further hesitation, I'm going to pass this. I'm just going to kick everybody off stage, boot, and then I'm going to mute everyone, and I'm going to get out of your way and take it away, buddy.
Is it too late to back out now?
No.
Okay, but now, but
That's funny.
we're committed.
Yeah, we're committed. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming out to Students in VR today. I would like to introduce my guest. He has earned the nickname to be the Godfather of VR. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Tom Furness. Let's give it up for Tom Furness today.
Hey, everyone. Good to see you.
Wow, Tom, thank you for being here. Thank Thank you for being here.
That's wonderful. It's my pleasure.
Okay, everybody in this audience is probably thinking the same thing I'm thinking. One main important question: why did you choose VR? Why did you end up in VR?
Oh, okay. Why did I end up in VR? Well, I'm not sure I chose it. It sort of happened. In the process of working on how do we solve problems in fighter cockpits, that's where I worked in the Department of Defense way back in 1966. It was clear that we weren't going to get there using traditional method. So in the process, we had to come up with another way of getting bandwidth to and from the brain of these pilots. And we came up with this notion of creating a virtual world for them that was natural and intuitive and a way to do that. So it was sort of, where you had a problem to solve, and this became the solution for it. And so, the old adage that necessity is the mother of invention, that's sort of why it happened that way. So I didn't choose it, it just sort of evolved. And the more I learned about it, the more excited I got about what we could do with it.
Wow. So you just mentioned that VR sort of ended up in the late 60s. How was it, how did it feel being one of the first people to be on the projects of VR in the first 60s?
Well, every day was an adventure because we were in new territory. We were discovering new things every day, and the more we got into it, we put on these headsets and we were transported into this other world, and we said, gosh, we can do this, we can do that, that we're not constrained with the traditional methods of looking at screens and things like that. We can go into the screen. And so, good question though. It was exhilarating and so exciting, and it is every time I do. For example, when I put on my headset here a few minutes ago, and I'm transported, even though I'm sitting here physically in my home, I'm actually with you guys. I'm in two places at once. Isn't that amazing? What we can do with this? And I just finished up with a conference call in Zoom. Where I was looking at the screen with all these people on it, and it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same connecting with them on the screen as it is here. So I guess back to your question, it was thrilling, and still is, of just beginning to understand how incredible people are, humans are, and that we are not constrained by space anymore. We're not constrained by having to move our bodies to go places. We can move our mind there. VR is a transportation system for our senses that lets us move at the speed of light to where we want to be.
Wow. Speaking of that, where you can be two places at once, what do you think VR holds for the future? What are we going to see in generations?
Well, that's an open-ended question. I think each of us would have some ideas about that, of where VR could lead in the future. But my belief is that it just like any other technology, it's a tool. Our technologies are tools. We've always been tool builders, and we build tools to, screwdrivers and hammers and wheels and things like that to help us do things. And VR is a tool that helps us expand our minds and gives us an incredible way to connect with things that we wouldn't be able to connect with. And for example, it can shrink us to 1 millimeter high. It can give us the ability to walk the speed of light. It can give us the ability to expand our interpupillary distance to 1 light year, to look at the universe that way. So it is a mind-expanding kind of tool that we have here. And it's, it can teach us, it can lift us, it can exhilarate us and heal us, all those kinds of things. And I mean, the discovery of what we could do with VR for treating people with pain is amazing. That we now see that it is a non-opiate, it's a non-pharmaceutical analgesic for pain. And not only for acute pain, but chronic pain, and for fatigue, and for reducing stress, and all these kind of things. And so it is also not only a way to connect us to the outside world and to be able to have these fantastic adventures, but also actually heal us, our own bodies and our own minds. So yeah, it's a thrill every day.
Yeah, I would say that. Like, you just said that VR would help people. What do you mean by that? Do you think people can heal instantly? Would it take over time? What do you believe in that?
Well, certainly, what VR does is in the process of moving our minds to another place at another time, this transportation system for our senses. What it does is give us the ability to be in other environments without having to go through the rigor of getting there. And I know I'm repeating myself here, but that is, to me, is the transformation that's taking place with it. And the ability also, I mean, it's not just VR, it is also augmented reality as well, which to me is just part of the spectrum, that we can now see real things, but we can see into real things. For example, we could go into a virtual forest and we could walk up to a virtual tree and we can see inside the tree and see how pretty much what's going on in terms of the physiology of a tree, how it's drawing water and nutrients from the roots, how it's lifting its branches into the sky to pick up the rays of the sun for photosynthesis, and the flow of all these things within the tree, and how the trees are connected to other trees, because they communicate with each other. They send out pheromones, they send out nutrients through their roots, they help other trees. Once we're able to be in a virtual forest and we see all of this happening by looking at real trees, but seeing what's inside of them, all these things happening. Let me tell you, it changes your whole mindset about a forest. It changes your whole mindset about a tree. It's a living being. It's a living soul. And so, yes, you can go into a virtual forest and see these things. But what it does is help you appreciate the real world more, appreciate real trees and real forests. So it really expands our awareness of not only what we can do within a virtual world, but how we relate to the real world.
Wow, I've never heard an answer like that. That was an amazing answer. Then I never took the time to sit down and think about that. But there was a project that you were dying to do, the super cockpit for the mind. Can you explain like what it holds in the future? What are you trying to do?
Sure. And you're going to help me with that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Super cockpit for the mind. Okay, well, this is, when I was working for the Air Force, one of my projects was a super cockpit. The idea that we would create this virtual workstation, basically, for the pilot. And this super cockpit would have three-dimensional visual information presented, three-dimensional acoustic information, three-dimensional tactile information, and have artificial intelligence built into it. It'd have ability to monitor our physiological state. All these kinds of things were going on. And we were building and testing these kinds of things. And I was actually, in the early days at least, I was flying in the fighter airplanes testing these kinds of things. So, and we knew that it worked, and it was really going to be transformative in terms of empowering pilots, what they could actually do. So over the years, as I've been developing virtual reality for other applications besides the military applications, in medicine and education and things like that, as long as technology, it occurred to me that what we really need is a super cockpit for the mind. What we need is a way to take our minds, since it is a transportation system, VR is transporting our minds to another place, another time, whatever. We need a cockpit for that. And a cockpit that helps us grow and learn using these tools. And what I'm really excited about is accelerating our ability to learn, hyper learning, accelerating up to 7 times faster, and increasing our retention. And the way we do that is we would create this control system around us that lets us navigate as we fly our mind into this virtual world. And we have various tools in that. We'd have what we call a flow state generator. Because what we want to do is get into a flow state. When you're in a flow state, this is the psychology of optimum experience. This is when things are really grooving and your mind is open, it's concentrated, focused. And when you're in this sort of careful balance between challenge and skill sets, you're able to run up a curve that lets you basically do things more effectively, and you retain. People talk about these flow states. Jazz musicians, when they are jamming, they say, wow, I just go into this flow state and things sort of happen. It's sort of a miracle. I have these other, my other comrades here are making music and we're synchronized. And surgeons talk about this. They get into this flow state and that they're able to do things they never were able to do before. Basketball teams, when they're in the flow. Game players, when they're in the flow. I mean, this is a altered state. It's a state of consciousness that we have, but that we don't use very often. But this flow state generator in the supercognitive of the mind will help promote that. And then we'd have some other things in that, like we would be measuring the physiological state of ourselves. And we would also have what I call mind bubbles. Our mind bubbles, it lets us build a trail of where we've been. And while we're coming up with these new insights, we would have a place to sort of store our impressions. And we will build these places that are actually memory links. It's what's called the Method of Loci. The Greeks talked about that. It's the way they memorize long passages. They would actually build a palace in their mind or a museum in their mind. And then they would walk through this museum in their mind, and that would help them remember, what they're trying to memorize. Now, we can do the same thing with things that we learn. As a matter of fact, we can create, let's say we have a farmyard. We have a farmhouse, and we have silos and a barn and paddocks and things like that. And what we do is we learn something, we sort of put it in a place. It could be anything. It can be images, it can be virtual world experiences, whatever it is. And then we have these various places. And we remember our yard. We say, okay, I know where all those things are. And I remember all those things because I was there. It's a place. And that place is inside of me, spatial memory. We're exercising there. And then what happens is, you ask them a question, or they ask you a question about something, they say, well, wow, why don't we go to my mind map? Why don't we go to my mind palace, my mind bubble? And so you take this person into that place, into that barn, into that silo, into that paddock, and you show them, this is your understanding of that. And your friend said, oh, wow, yeah, that's really cool. Let me show you mine. That links to mine. And so you go to that person's mind bubble. Now what happens is you combine those mind bubbles, and now you have more space, and you remember the links to those other mind bubbles. This is the way we remember things. We remember them spatially. We don't necessarily remember them in words. And so just activating that in our supercognitive of the mind will be really helpful. So there are lots of these different elements. There's R2D2 that is going to also be in the super. R2D2 is going to help us infer our intent. Basically, R2D2 is sitting there sort of as a co-pilot back behind us and saying, okay, this is what this guy's trying to do. And what R2D2 recognize how we fly our trajectory through this virtual world. And so anyhow, these are some of the elements that I want us to work on for the supercognitive of the mind. And so that can help us really use this this amazing tool of virtual reality, grow and progress and learn and so forth.
Wow. I'm going to ask you a last question before I open up questions for the audience. You recently just turned 77 in April. How does it feel being in VR for over 50 years and you accomplished that this much?
Huh. I can't believe I'm 77.
Me neither.
I never thought I would be 77. I mean, you never think about that. And it just happens. And I've been having so much fun. I mean, I've never worked a day in my life, really. I mean, it's been from day one in at least my professional career, it has been so fun. And I'm alive. And it's sort of great being a professor because I get to hang out with young kids, a little bit older than you now, but that's why I want to come in. I want to hang out with you, right, buddy? So,
Yeah.
But I like hanging out with the students because I love them. They have so great, their ideas are so wonderful. And the reason they're wonderful is because they aren't steeped in a lot of, no, you can't do that kind of thing. So naivety with enthusiasm is really good. And that's why it's so great hanging out with these students, because I'm hanging on for dear life, as they tell me these things that they want to do or they're thinking about. And I say, wow, that is really cool. I never would have thought of that. So back to 77, I want to live as long as I can. As long as this body holds up. My body's in pretty good shape, actually. I'm still vertical and breathing, that's good. And I want to continue to keep going. And it's important for me to take care of my body so I get to have fun with you guys, hang out with you guys. So, I'll be here at 87, maybe even 97, And as
Maybe
a matter of fact, it's interesting. Nice. Would that be cool, 97? Will you invite me back in 97, 20 years from now?
Oh, man. That would be huge.
Maybe you'll have one of these things. You'll have one of these beards and things.
Oh, man, that would. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tom Furness, everybody. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, buddy, for this opportunity.
Thank you. What do you mean? You're the legend.
Oh, no. I'm just one of the team. One of the guys. I'm a kid having fun.
Yeah, I just opened up a raise hand feature for you guys if you wanted to ask Tom any questions. Our first question comes from Slick Rick.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks a lot. That was such a great interview. Thanks a lot, you guys, for doing this. I found it really inspiring and insightful. So great. So my question is your thoughts on stimulation theory. Given your perspective of your lifetime in VR, and you've seen how far it's advanced. So you're well aware of what it's capable of. So I'm just wondering what you think of the thoughts that we're actually living in a simulation right now.
Oh, well, yeah, that's sort of one of the popular notions now. We're in this holographic universe. We're in a simulation. The idea of the dual slit experiment that basically, as we observe something, we collapse the wave equation, and that the waves turn to particles and things like that. That's in quantum theory is sort of really bizarre. Well, the idea of being in a simulation, I think to some extent, I wouldn't really call it a simulation. I would call it something that has to do with you make your own world. And, I can walk down the street, the same street, physically in the physical world, and I will have different impressions of that walk than the one person that's right beside me, and different attitude. For example, I'll look at the flowers and say, wow, aren't they beautiful? I mean, and smell them. That's what I did this morning. I went and walked down the street and I was smelling the flowers. And but another person would walk down the street beside me and say, gosh, look at the cracks in the sidewalk. They need to do something about that. That tree needs to be trimmed. It's like that. So, that person didn't see what I saw and didn't experience what I experienced. So is there some master simulation out there? I don't know. Certainly, I do know we're all connected somehow. We're connected to everything. We're entangled. Quantum theory tells us we're all entangled, even from the Big Bang. So there's a part of me that's coupling and entangled from a quantum standpoint to what's going on inside of you. So we do have this connection. We do have this coupling. And oh, by the way, what we think affects this other person. Because we send out signals. And those signals can be ones of sort of beholding, embracing, loving and liking and being supportive, or they can be sort of ones of hate or ones of displeasure or criticism. And so we send those signals out and they affect. That's why we need to be for what we think. So anyhow, back to your question about stimulation. Simulation can teach us a lot. And maybe that's why we're here. This is a simulation because maybe there are only certain things we can learn. But simulation can make us better. We use them all the time in flight training. That pilots have to fly so many hours in the simulator before they go into real life. So maybe this is just preparing us for something to come. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and yeah, I agree with you, 100% about how we have the power to create our own reality. So, again, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, Slick Rick, for that amazing question. Thank you. Our next question comes from I don't even want Ad Luna. Ad Luna, is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. What's your question? Oh, something went wrong. I'm sorry. You have to click the raise hand feature to get hand raised. I'll come right back to you as soon as you have it on. Next, we go on to Mr. Pete. Mr. Pete?
Yes, I didn't hear how old he said he was. I'm 78 years old, been in VR about 3 years. I'm heavy into 3D and 360 videos of pictures, really enjoy it. Don't meet a lot of older people here in virtual reality, but we enjoy it.
Well, you're an old guy.
Just wondering how. Yeah.
78.
I mean, I don't have a beard.
You're an ancient.
I have most of my hair. But I didn't hear.
Okay.
I didn't hear how old you were.
I'm 77.
Oh, I'm king of the band. I got you by the ear. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
That was hilarious. Thank you, Mr. Pete. Our next question comes from GG Jafar. Jafar?
Jeffrey, that's me.
Oh God, I can't
Who's
read.
Jeffrey?
I'm sorry.
No worries. I was interested in what you're talking about in how VR can treat chronic pain. What do you find to be the most effective ways to do that right now?
Well, it's interesting, when we started out with, and again, we discovered on this, tripped on this by accident, the power of VR because it is an engaging environment. And what that engagement does is basically help you control your attention. And this whole idea of a distraction, in order to experience pain, you have to be conscious of pain. And if you're thinking about something else, you don't notice the pain. And that's why VR works so well, especially in acute pain situations where you're doing wound care and things like that. And so you're trying to remove staples from a skin graft, or you're for burn patients, physical therapy, or some kind of other procedure, wound care procedure. Pain can be acute. You can't even dose a patient with enough morphine that pain from happening. And VR works. It works very effectively. You don't have to even dose patients with any medication. Now, we thought, well, yeah, that will work for acute pain, but will it work for chronic pain? And because chronic pain, you're sort of hurting all the time. And yeah, you can only be in VR for a short period of time. But one of the things we found out is that we put people in a virtual world where they get distracted and go off into another world. And that actually works for chronic pain as well. That what happens, and we ask them, well, they may have a 30-minute treatment in VR when they're in pain, and they don't notice the pain when they're in that VR setting. But then when they take the headset off, they say, well, it actually lasts for a while. We say, why does it last for a while? And they say, because I go back in my mind to that world. So it all has to do with putting a place inside of them. If they can go back to that place in their memory. And in the process of going back to that place, it has the same effect as if they were continuously in VR. Now,
That's a
away
great
over a period of
transition,
time.
Tom. Tom, other places is such a great transition to the talk that's going to be starting right now in another place. I want to thank. There are students waiting to start at the half hour, and I want to make sure that those students aren't. Everybody's here because you're Tom Furness. And I don't want, and I want to thank you. I want all of us to clap and just thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you,
the
guys.
amazing Buddy.
Thank you,
and
Buddy.
Tom Furness.
No
and
problem.
what we normally do, Tom, and we would love for you to join us, Buddy, you also, is we generate a portal to our next event, and it's being generated over there. And when we pop out, there are going to be some students over there, and they would be so happy to see you all pop into their talk now. Thank you guys so much.
Okay, thanks everyone.
For everything. And then we will meet you over there and take a picture in that place.
Well, let's
Okay?
give a round
Bye,
of applause.
guys. Bye. Big round of applause, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Buddy.
Thank you
No,
guys
thank you.
so much. I didn't mean to cut it off. I just imagine those young kids over there thinking nobody's going to come to their talk.
No, we had to stick to our time. Not a problem.
Just
You're
an
wonderful.
announcement that Tom Furness will be back in the Altspace VR house for the first official Virtual World Society Fireside Chat coming up in just a few hours. So check that out too.
Yeah.
We'll be back. And you should come to our dance party.
Your dance
Dance
party.
party.
Oh.
In just a few hours. In a really
That's 4:30.
He'll tell you all about it. And then,
Okay.
yeah, make sure Tom comes to the dance party. I'm going to bye, guys.
Bye.
We're going to make you dance, Tom, no matter what.
We are. We are. Okay, we'll do it.